Welcome to EDGEcast, the series where we show you tips, tricks and best practices when using Solid Edge. In this episode, we'll be discussing how to upgrade to Solid Edge ST10. Many of these steps will be relevant to installing past and future versions of the software though, so feel free to refer back to this video, even if you aren't installing ST10. Firstly, we'll be discussing why you would want to upgrade, why you might want to delay upgrading, which files to back up before uninstalling your old software, making sure you have the right license version, and finally, how to install Solid Edge after you've gone through the previous steps. Also, if there are any users or admins watching who need to run silent installations, there'll be a section at the end of this EDGEcast episode on this topic. So why do we upgrade Solid Edge? There are four main reasons to do so, listed roughly in order of how commonly our support engineers hear them. Firstly, new software versions mean new functions. For example, ST9 released with a pack and go utility and a new data management suite. ST10 improved on data management and is the first version of Solid Edge to include flow simulation and generative design tools. If you want to use these new tools, upgrading is a must. If you'd like an overview of what's new at ST10, I've included a link in the description of this video to a blog post from one of the Siemens tech team. Please take a look if you're not sure whether to upgrade. Next, Solid Edge is designed to work with Windows operating systems, but not all of them. For example, it would make no sense to write a version of Solid Edge compatible with Windows 3.1. This has meant that 32-bit Solid Edge stopped being produced after ST6, and the ST10 is the last version of Solid Edge to be supported on Windows 7. Also, ST10 will not install on XP or Vista systems, so bear this in mind before committing to an upgrade. The end result of this is that if you upgrade your operating system, you might need to upgrade Solid Edge as well. Next, if your suppliers or clients are using a certain version of Solid Edge, it may be necessary to upgrade your own version of the software. This is because files created by ST10 will not open in ST9 or before. There'll be more on that topic in the next slide. And finally, it may be that a software problem users are having is fixed at a later version of Solid Edge. Typically such issues are fixed with maintenance packs, so this is not usually a reason for upgrading, but it has been known to be the case. With all that in mind, there may be very good reasons to not upgrade Solid Edge, at least not on your own. Some of our customers use PLM or PDM software such as Teamcenter, Insight, or any other integrated data management solution. If this is the case, upgrading Solid Edge with a normal install procedure can cause these integrations to fail, and we would strongly recommend contacting your reseller for assistance with upgrading in this case. It might also be that your suppliers or clients have an older version of Solid Edge and have no intention of upgrading. This brings us on to file compatibility. Older versions of Solid Edge cannot open files created in newer versions of the software because of the upgraded features present. However, newer versions of Solid Edge can all open legacy data created in older versions, as you might expect. Now, when software is upgraded, some users also like to upgrade hardware. In terms of recommended hardware specifications, we can provide recommendations, but nothing detailed, unfortunately. Now, the reason we don't provide too much detail is that a workstation suitable for a user making simple bolts, for example, would not work for a user creating complex assemblies with thousands of unique components, and the first user wouldn't need anywhere near the processing power required as a minimum by the second. With that in mind, we provide a general recommended specification guide. Please ask either our support team or your sales account manager if you would like a copy. In addition to this, Siemens provide an Excel list of certified graphics hardware on their website and descriptions of levels of support provided by Siemens and the hardware manufacturer for each. While some users will be happy to simply uninstall their current version and install ST10, most have some form of customization to Solid Edge's interface or settings that they want to keep. There are three main groups of settings that users can bring from their current version into ST10. The first are files from the install directory that govern software behavior, such as the currently active options, all libraries of holes, materials, sheet metal gauges, and other custom geometry or file properties that need to be present in all your files. The next type of files are template files and accompanying custom draft elements, for example parts lists, holes tables, quicksheet templates. All of these can be brought through to ST10. Bear in mind that hole tables have changed significantly in ST10, and heavily customized tables may need to be regenerated in the new software version. We also recommend opening and saving all your old templates at the new software version before using them to create new files. Finally, the third type of file, the layout of buttons or commands in Solid Edge can be changed with the Customize menu. For example, one of our users has the Save as Image command bound to their Quick Access toolbar because they need to use it on a regular basis. The files that govern all of these settings are in the following default locations. Options files tend to be in the Preferences folder, just here. Templates and all accompanying draft sections are normally stored in the Templates folder. More often than not, this folder is stored on a company server, so that all users can create drafts with the same style. Finally, custom button layouts are stored in the user's App Data folder. Many Microsoft Office applications share this behavior. One method of keeping these settings is simply to back up these three folders and then paste them into the same locations in ST10 after installation. For companies with most of their customizations server-side, the most important file to copy is the options.xml file from the Preferences folder, and we'll be covering in detail what all of these files do in a future EDGEcast episode. Now, when I said that copying these files was one method of carrying over settings, it is the only method available if you're using ST8 or before. If you're using ST9, however, you can use the Settings and Preferences wizard, which is installed with Solid Edge, to gather all of the settings I've just mentioned, bundle them into one neat file with the extension .sepref, and use the same utility at ST10 to deploy them again. You can choose to include or exclude certain settings while doing this, and you can even copy over Windows registry settings, which include a list of your most recently used files. This can be done manually during an upgrade, but we don't recommend it. It is important to bear in mind licensing when upgrading, as an older license file or server cannot run ST10. However, an ST10 license will run all Solid Edge versions back to ST4, so you may wish to keep your licenses up to date, even if you have no immediate plans to upgrade your software. The easiest method of checking whether you're at the correct license version is to open your license file and check the version entry near the top. Here's an example. Siemens numbering conventions for Solid Edge start with additional 1, so 110 is ST10, 109 is ST9, etc. If the number here doesn't match the version you want to upgrade to, you will need to download a new one from the Siemens GTAC website. You'll need a WebKey account to access the link shown, or you can contact your reseller to obtain a new one. Now, if you want more information on how to license Solid Edge, there's an existing EDGEcast episode that goes into detail on the subject. Please take a look at the customer area of our website. Now, before installing ST10 normally, you'll need to uninstall any other versions of Solid Edge. We recommend doing a final checkup of your backed up settings, then navigating to Windows Control Panel, selecting Add Remove Program, right-clicking Solid Edge, and then choosing Uninstall. It is then useful to clear all the files from the old installation. This can be done with a tool on the installation media, SE Cleanup All. Navigate to the SPT Tools SE Cleanup folder, and then run secleanupall.exe on your machine. This will remove all remaining registry settings, and should also remove all folders related to Solid Edge from your Program Files directory. If you've stored Solid Edge files in non-standard locations on your workstation, you might need to manually remove them, but this will not affect server-side files. Now, when it comes to installing ST10, we recommend first disabling user account controls. These can interfere with installation, create annoying pop-up boxes, and if set high enough, will stop you in your tracks. Next, We've found through experience that certain antivirus software causes components of Solid Edge to either stop working or removes them entirely. One particularly nasty example was an antivirus that overwrote critical DLL files. Therefore, we recommend temporarily disabling all antivirus for the purposes of installation. Finally, we recommend ensuring that the installer is run with admin privileges, navigating to autostart.exe, right-clicking it and choosing this option is generally seen as best practice. If it prompts for a username and password, you'll need to contact your IT department. When installing, users have the option to install Solid Edge wherever they want on their workstations. The reasons for doing so could be that you have a separate hard drive, partition or folder for certain applications, or that you don't have access to program files, or that you just want to install on a custom directory. Now I'm going to show you my recommended method of upgrading to ST10. You could just uninstall from Control Panel and install quickly, but this is just tidier. The observant among you will notice I'm using a virtual machine. This is just to create a clearer demo for everyone. First, you'll notice I've backed up a license file in a folder on my desktop. I also have a downloadable copy of the ST10 install media, and ST9 as my current version of Solid Edge. ST10 comes by default as a download only, although if you need an installation DVD, you can contact your reseller to request one. I'm going to back up all of my current settings to start with. Start Settings and Preferences wizard, which, if you can't find it, is in C, Program Files, Solid Edge version, Program, SE Copy Settings Wizard.exe. For this demo, I'm going to choose Capture Settings and Preferences, and then tick all of the boxes present. Windows Registry Settings, App Data, Preferences Files, and Templates. Then I'll set a location for the Preferences file. Default is to Documents, but I like to work on my desktop. I could rename this file, but I'm just going to save as default, and Finish. And there's the file that contains all my customization. Next, I'm going to uninstall ST9 with Control Panel. We'll go to Uninstall a Program, right-click Solid Edge ST9, and select Uninstall. Now it's uninstalled, we can clear all remaining folders and settings. Open the install media. This might be a DVD, but will have the same folder structure as you see here. And open Solid Edge SPT Tools SE Cleanup. Then run the exe that you find here. I always ignore this window, because I've never seen add or remove programs remove absolutely everything. I can prove this worked. If I navigate to Program Files, you'll notice there's no Solid Edge folder present here. It's as if ST9 were never installed. Now I'm ready to install ST10. First, I'll make sure UAC, or User Account Controls, are off, and yes it is, it's at its lowest setting. Now we'll never get pop-ups when a program attempts to write to my registry. I'll install by right-clicking autostart.exe and selecting Run as Administrator. Then we see this install screen. Now for 99% of the time when you see this screen, you'll need to select the top option, particularly as ST10's Teamcenter client integration doesn't need to be installed separately. You'll need to tick this box to accept the End User License Agreement. I've read it before, but feel free to look through it if you like EULAs. Username and organization are optional, and the default modeling standard for Solid Edge in English is isometric. You can change this if you like, either here or after installation. Now I'm going to set up my licensing. Once again, I can do this later, but as I know where my license is, I'll do it now. Here it is, on my desktop. I could also change the install directory and point to a different options file, but I already captured options in my settings and preferences file, so right now that's not necessary. On to the next step, and wait for Solid Edge to install. Now that ST10 is installed, we need to redeploy settings and preferences. I'll start my settings and preferences wizard again and ensure it's set to deploy settings and preferences. Next, I need to find that SEPref file on my desktop and make sure all the boxes I want are ticked. Now I've got Solid Edge ST10 installed with exactly the same settings and preferences as it had at ST9, and there are no unwanted files left over. When I said earlier that you need to uninstall old versions of Solid Edge before installing ST10, that isn't the whole story. It is possible to run a silent installation of Solid Edge, which means not having to click your way through the normal install steps, instead running a single command line to install without any pop-up windows. There are a few reasons why you may wish to do this. For example, you can use a silent install on a test machine to install multiple versions of Solid Edge. You can also write a bat file or group policy to distribute software to users over a network. And some users may just prefer using a silent install because it doesn't create any pop-up windows. This is more of an admin, not a user task, so if you're not a fan of IT in general, this section might be less useful to you. To install silently, you'll need to run this command from an elevated Windows command prompt and most likely edit the directories displayed, as your install media, license file, options and install directory might be in a different location to mine. For the curious, this particular command line will install with isometric as default file creation method, with no data management active, no user interface except for a modal dialog box at the very end, and with verbose logging active, writing to a C drive folder called temp. For more info, see the README file for Solid Edge, which is available for download from the Siemens GTAC website. There are also some useful threads on Solid Edge user forums, if you're interested. Now this procedure is only possible if you have full admin permissions to the workstation you're installing Solid Edge on, so bear this in mind before setting up your silent install directory. Be advised that while it is possible to install ST10 with another version of Solid Edge present, we do not under any circumstances recommend doing so on a production machine. One reason is that it's too easy to open old files in ST10 and save them, which would then make them impossible to open in ST9. Another is that separate installations rely on many of the same prerequisites, and performance may be unpredictable. So now I'm going to show you how to silently install Solid Edge. Here I have another installation of ST9, but I'm not going to uninstall it this time. Instead, I'm going to silently install ST10 alongside it. I have my install media right here on the desktop, plus a backup of my license and options files. To start the install procedure, we need to fire up an admin command prompt. Right-click CMD and choose Run as Administrator. Then you'll need to enter the install command as one line. I wrote mine up in Notepad first, to check it over for typos. The wonderful thing about Windows 10 command prompt is that I can actually paste with Ctrl-V now. Remember, this isn't the only way to install silently. You can change or remove some of this text if you're familiar with Windows installer arguments, although the directories for all files must be correct for your system. I'm running with no dialog boxes, and with verbose logging, indicated by the QN+ and L*V arguments respectively. Now all I'm going to do is hit Enter. And as promised, there's no indication that Solid Edge is installing. Although if you open up the install log file, you'll be able to check the progress of the installer while it's running. Now I've just seen a dialog box flash up and disappear. so I know that ST10 has been installed. I've got a warning about my options file being from ST9 and not ST10, but I'll disregard that for now. The important thing is that ST10 has installed successfully without removing ST9. If I want to toggle between active versions when double-clicking files to open them, I'll need to do so with the Install Media SPT tool's SE setActiveVersion.exe. Just remember that this isn't a normal install. We now have a test environment for ST10, which will allow you to test a new version before committing to an upgrade. Just bear in mind that your add-on products, such as standard parts, won't work with your test software, ST10 in this case. If you want to check for errors after installing silently, you can open up the log file. Mine was saved to the root of my C drive in this case. It's quite detailed, but I'm only going to check the time taken to install in this case, about 8.5 minutes. Your own time will probably be different, as I'm using both local install media and a virtual machine. So, in summary, we've covered the steps you need to take before, during, and after upgrading to Solid Edge ST10, bearing in mind that Solid Edge files are not backwards compatible, but that all your old files will be able to be opened with ST10, that we advise backing up all settings and preferences, especially for solo users, that licensing can be changed after upgrading, but we recommend ensuring you have the right license before doing so. It's a good idea to clean up your install directory before installing ST10 with SE Cleanup All. And we've also covered standard and silent install procedures and why you would use one over the other. And finally, bear in mind that it's only possible to install multiple versions of Solid Edge with the silent install procedure, and it's not recommended that you do so on a production workstation. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, topics you'd like us to cover, or any other feedback, feel free to send them to us by email at support@cuttingedge.co.uk. I'd like to remind you that all of these videos will be available on demand in the customer area of our website, and be sure to tune in to watch the next episode of EDGEcast.